My name is Kevin. I'll be your tour guide. I'm not a native Chicagoan, but grew up in another of the 5 Great Lakes, Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio. Moving to Chicago in August 1981. I'm turning 68 in September 22nd. I've been living in the heart of the city for 43 years. I'm a Chicagoan. My first night in town, I remember it like it was yesterday. I got invited to a party. An actress walked up to me. I was a young actor. And she said, "Oh, you're new in town." Well, let me tell you, kid, the motto for the city of Chicago is I will. This is a can-do town. Go out, kid, you want to make things happen. The spirit of I will was a reference to the turning point in Chicago history, October 8th, 1871. Write that date down, it's on the test. That was the date of the Great Chicago Fire. On that day, a fire supposedly started to be boiled by Daisy, don't you know? Mrs. O'Leary's Irish cow on the west side, kicking over a kerosene lantern boils, causing a fire. Planning, he would write the Plan of Chicago, a document released on July 4th, 1909, making the river the focal point of the city with grand architecture rising up along its banks, for we willed modern history. Barossa Tower in Sevilla in Spain. And coming up on our right, the Apple Computer Store. It's from my favorite London architect, Sir Norman Foster, the Gherkin man. Minimalism at its best, with a wall that's hardly there and a roof that evokes an Apple laptop computer. We are now approaching what is known as Paris on the Prairie. But hey, let's take it to the bridge. What happened to the bridge? The bridge is named Dusable Bridge. In Chicago, you don't forget where you came from. Jean-Baptiste Pontoussaint was a French-speaking fur trader from Haiti, and he was the first Chicagoan. He started to the left. The revivalism of the World's Fair lives on, and the beauty is the Jewelers Building with cupola dome and classic water tanks, inspired by a 15th century Italian monastery, the Certosa de Pavia, but built here for He was born in the Bauhaus, who was heard of this famous art school, 1920s Germany, merging industry and art. Now, the first modernists were utilitarian and functional, celebrating structure and materials. They loved structure and hated decoration. To the modernists, the decoration was bourgeois, dishonest, so they stripped their building down to 3 elements: skeleton, skin, and space. Skeleton, the frame, skin, the glass curtain wall, and most of the time a square, a box. Now, this building was done by the father of modernism in America, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, bridge builder named William O'Brien Ginny. Now, get this. Ginny actually studied at the same school as Alexander Eiffel, yes, of the Eiffel Tower. So we're talking 2 guys who really understand structure, okay? And what else was on the grades? And it was only a hop, skip, and a jump from that simple Chicago school style, 1885 to about 1915, to the soaring vertical glass skyscrapers we have today. On our right, the style that put the roar in the Roaring 20s art has. From the Wolf Point Tower complex on our right, Salesforce is the name of it for my California friends. Yeah, same company did that thing in the Bay Area. Look right in front of you at the beautiful River Point building, sculpture by Spanish architect Santiago Calatrava. The arch at the bottom complemented with an inverted parabola up at the top, causing little kids to give that building the perfect nickname. They call it the Hot Pocket Sandwich Building. Lattes, a stronger central core. That's what's holding the building up, my friends. Your core posts are called caissons, watertight, box-like structures filled with concrete. And because Chicago and the Great Lakes were carved out by the glaciers, the soil soft. You want to anchor a building in Chicago, you better drill. Egyptology was an influence on Art Deco due to the opening of King Tut's tomb in 1922. Back then, the Great Sphinx would have been in the newspapers every day. And on our left, also Art Deco, the Civic Opera Building, a perfect marriage of pragmatism and art. Start with an opera house, surround yourself with corporate towers, so the opera is also the landlord. If the play, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill over 30 years, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, join me in this time machine of architecture. It was the 3rd of June, another dusty, sleepy Delta day. Ode to Billy Joe, Bobby Gentry, 1960s. And you will see a very great use of international style by the great French-Belgian comedian Jacques Tati. And his masterpiece is called Playtime, 1968. The critic Jonathan Rosenbaum said it taught him how to live in modern cities. And most of the action takes place in an international style skyscraper. Let's jump into the 80s. I'll stop down 10 years ago and said, let's spend $800,000 to put a map of the river on the side of our building. That'll make those tour guides talk. It worked. Look at that red block. You are here. That's the building. You're on the boat right next to it. Better than GPS. Now here's a tip. They gave us a tour a month ago, and this coffee house thriving today as it's been reimagined as an office center. Cost about, what was the price tag? I did get about $900 million price tag to do it. You know why we needed a building of such space for a post? Trying to steal the O'Leary's keg of beer. Starting a small fire we now believe is a distraction to his beer stealing crime and got out of control. Can you follow the way of nature, the Tao? Can you yield and overcome? Can you bend and remain straight? Yes, my Sears Tower follows the way of nature, for it has a sway factor. LED lights, it threw migrating birds off. They thought it was the moon, so they dim it. They dim it down during migrations. An artist canvas. Looking to our right, you will find a permanent image for the audio portion. You go to your cell phone right now, and you look up art on themart.com. And then the soundtrack the artist has chosen will show up on your cell phone. And you come down at sundown, you sit along the Riverwalk, and the presentation begins using the whole face of the merchandise market by the Burnham Brothers, Dan Jr. and you. Now, the timing is important. It was designed in the 1920s during Prohibition, with the right, only 9.5 foot across that octagonal crown. Yet another building like the Wrigley Building I'd like to go back to now, clad with terracotta, the most popular cladding material after the live sketch, cheeseburger, 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 no fries, chips, no Pepsi, Coke. You can stand at eye level with the Tribune Tower and find a piece of the Taj Mahal, the Great Wall of China, Westminster Abbey, the Alamo, and Notre Dame embedded in the architecture. I want you to look at the steps on either side of the fountain. That is an artistic representation of a geographical area